Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast, the podcast where the dogs are the stars of the show. Welcome to episode 69 of the Relaxed Dog Podcast, sponsored by therelaxeddog.com. Thank you very much for finding this show. I am your host, Robert Ober, and I hope that you and your dog are well. Welcome back to the regular listeners, and an extra big welcome if this is your first episode. My guest this week is Christine Kelliher, and she's going to be talking about Kirby. But first, in some doggy news, in Wilmington, North Carolina in the USA, a couple of years ago, a lady was cleaning up and put up some old wind chimes a little bit low in the yard, and her golden retriever puppy Blue was attracted to them, and he'd walk through them and enjoying the noise that they made. He then took it a step further and started howling or singing when he walked through the chimes. Fast forward a couple of years, and Beau's pet guardian took some video, and it has now clocked up, I think, over 20 million views. At this stage, I don't think he has a recording contract yet. We now go down to Mexico, and this is a little bit of an older story, but local stray dog hanging around a convenience store, and the staff felt a little bit sorry, so they started giving him a few tidbits of which they'd provided, and they then took it to the next level when the temperatures were hitting over 105 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a bit over 40 degrees Celsius. So they opened the doors, and the dog took up the invitation to come inside and cool itself down on the tiled floors. What happened then was, as customers came through, they started buying treats for the dog. So nice to see kindness going towards our canine friends. And now, this week's interview. Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast. I am here with Christine Kelliher. How are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
I am fantastic. Thank you very much. So, whereabouts in the world are you?
I currently live in the mid-coast of Maine, in a town called South Thomaston.
Ah, nice, nice. And who are we going to talk about today?
My past police canine partner, Kirby.
Kirby. Wonderful. So, as per usual, I'm going to ask you to take us back in time to just before you met Kirby and talk to us about the hows and whys that happened.
Prior to meeting Kirby, I was a canine handler in the Bensalem Township Police Department right outside Philadelphia. I had a canine partner, a yellow lab by the name of Cosmo. She was my drug detector dog, and we did a fantastic job together. We were assigned to the Philadelphia DEA Drug Enforcement Administration Task Force, and we were getting a lot of great drug jobs down there. Things are going really well, but Cosmo was getting to the point where her hips were starting to fail, and she needed to be retired. I went from Cosmo to another yellow lab named Chaos. He worked with me for 6 months before finding out he had a brain tumor.
Oh,
it was tough. He was removed from the road and lived out the rest of his life with me. And then the decision obviously was made that Chaos would have to be replaced. So the trainer that I was working with, Perry Parks, him and I went to Sanford, North Carolina, and met with Jerry Bradshaw from, Tar Heel Canine. So we met with Jerry, and Jerry showed me two Labrador retrievers that I was not was not really head over heels for. And I asked him, I said, do you have any German Shepherds? And he said that he had a couple small females that I might be interested in. He brought the females out, and I watched one, and I was impressed by her. And then this girl brings out Kirby, who ends up being my partner, and she made me and the trainer I was with, she made us speechless. She made us speechless when she came out. She was full of drive. It was like, just tell me what to do and get out of my way attitude. And the testing process went fantastic. We had it went nice and smooth. She did everything we asked of her, and I was just from that point on, I was head over heels for her. So the thing was, she cost $800 more than a Labrador Retriever. So I called the department and had a long talk with the boss, and explained why I needed $800 and that this was absolutely positively the right dog. That we we couldn't go wrong with this dog, and they agreed to fund the extra $800 for me to purchase her and bring her back.
Oh, nice. And how was that initial bringing back? And did you stay straight to your place, or?
Yeah, we drove. It was probably about a 13-hour drive. We drove down. We picked her up. We got home about 3:00 in the morning. I had a kennel set up for her in the garage at my house. I didn't know how she would be with the other dogs in my house. The next morning, our canine unit, the patrol end of our canine unit, was training. So we went up to their training so everybody could meet her, and so that my supervisor could test her out and see her for himself. And she was still on fire. She wanted to go. She wanted to work. She was 2.5 years old. I thought that was fairly old to start a dog, but it just seemed right. So everybody liked her from the get-go, and then the day after, 2 days later, we started our initial training.
Oh, nice. So what other dogs did you have at home at the time?
I had my retired dog, Cosmo. Mm-hmm. Chaos was still around, the one with the brain tumor. And I had a pet dog that was a Bernese Mountain Dog at the time. Okay.
And where did they sort of reside in the household?
They were always loose in the house. There was never an issue with them. Kirby at first did not gel well with other dogs. It was a tough introduction into the house. She was very high drive, and not knowing her background and everything, she just she was just always prey driven, and she acted. It was more like a prey drive issue in the house, and not an aggression issue. But it was very difficult to have her around the other dogs at first.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about the initial training that you had with her and the bonding?
We trained over in New Jersey with absolute control dog training. My trainer was Perry Parks at the time. This was prior to me becoming a trainer, and we hit the ground running. She didn't miss a beat. She picked up right away what we were doing, how we were doing it, and it was pretty much flawless. I mean, it was just a fantastic experience with a really great dog.
Mm-hmm. And what was her specialized area of training? What sort of was she going to be used as a dual purpose, or?
She had the potential for dual purpose, but we strictly worked. We did drug detection: marijuana, cocaine, heroin, crack cocaine, methamphetamines. Mm-hmm. That's what she was used to detect.
Okay. And how long before you were taking her out on active duty?
It was the initial training was about 2 months, and then we hit the road.
Oh, nice. So, do you remember the first shift that you did with her?
I don't remember the first find. There were just so many with her, but she hit the ground running, like I said, and we being down on the DEA task force, we were all over the place. We were at Philadelphia Airport. We were we were searching houses, we were searching cars, we were working the UPS facilities, the FedEx facilities, working with the U.S. Postal Inspectors on, potential drug boxes coming through the U.S. mail. We worked with the FBI, the ATF. We were pretty much all over the place.
Okay. The training, what was the primary rewards that you used with her?
I can't imagine that it tasted very good, but she just loved that tennis ball. She was obsessed with it.
So there goes the.
And it wasn't necessarily just the tennis ball. It was the ability to play tug of war with the tennis ball. So she could search a room with 100 tennis balls in that room, and she would ignore every single tennis ball until she found the drugs, because she knew that I would not play tug of war with any of those tennis balls with her unless she found the drugs.
Oh, nice.
So, so she lived for the game of tug of war with me.
So that's a little bit of a variant, tug of war with the tennis ball.
Yes. Yeah, I would, I would just put a string through the ball and she would destroy them left and right, but, at least they were on the cheaper side, and, and she lived for it. I mean, she could have a tennis ball in her mouth, she would, but she knew when it was time to go to work that if I was going to play tennis ball with her, then she would have to find the drugs.
Mm-hmm. Did she have any other sort of favorite toys or things that you sort of
not really? No, not really. She just, it was all about the tennis ball. I had been to training with other trainers, and they would, a lot of trainers use a towel that's rolled up and tied off. And if she was scratching at an area where there were drugs and somebody threw a rag in like that, she would just look at it and continue to dig for the drugs, because her tennis ball wasn't there. She could have cared less about anything else. It was just all about that ball.
So that sort of drilled down focus.
Yes.
Very nice. How was she with any other or many other canine units where you were initially?
Were there a lot of them? Yes.
Okay. And did you work a lot in tandem with other dogs at the time?
No, normally when you work with the drug work, you work individually with the dog, just one dog and one handler. She did come around. She was very accepting of a couple of dogs in our canine unit that she could be around without being a crazy maniac. But she just slowly kept to herself, and and we just focused on the work.
Okay. And what about going when you were back, sort of at your office or headquarters and doing admin work? Did she come into that center as well?
Yes, everywhere I went, she went with me. If I was in the office, she would come in, and I did have a crate for her. There was an empty desk next to me, and her thing was she would love to just jump up on the empty desk and just lay there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was pretty comical, especially when people would walk through the office and not realize she was there, and then she'd move or jump up to say hi to them, and it'd scare the daylights out of guys when they walk by her.
Yeah, I like it. I haven't heard of too many using a desk as their own sort of elevated platform.
Yeah, that was her choice. I didn't tell her to do it, but.
And I like that it wasn't discouraged either. So.
No, they loved her. They loved when she ran through the office. The guys loved to play with her. She was a lot of fun. She had a good personality.
Mm-hmm. So I know that there's different methods of scent detection. Do you want to talk a little bit on her? If you think she had a preferred way of detecting, or her stronger methods of working?
Yeah, when I first started with her, the only downfall I had with her was her prey drive issue with other dogs, and how she always wanted she would want to concentrate on dogs, hearing dogs barking, trying to get to those dogs instead of working drugs. I worked her down in Miss Jackson, Mississippi, by name of Randy Hare, who has this system called On Target, where the dog works to get directly as close to that source as possible. So they come in the area, they smell the drugs, and you'll see right away by the change in your dog's behavior that they smell the drugs, and they work to a certain, a certain point where they will indicate. And the method we use, they would actually work to not only get to the location, but get to where the strongest part of the odor was coming out. We did that with a row of boxes, about 8 boxes on a rack, made out of wood, and each one had a hollow area in the middle, and you had the ability to drop a tennis ball on a string into that area. And in that area was a little plastic pod that held the odor of the drugs. And you would drop the ball to start with. You would drop the ball down into that area and bounce the ball around right there next to that pod where the drugs are. The dog comes up, grabs the ball, and you keep the dog there by playing tug of war right there where that pod is with the odor of the drugs. You do that a couple times and remove and then you remove the dog, bring the dog back maybe an hour later, and then you may, like I said, there's maybe 8 boxes up on the rack. The drugs might be in box number 7. So you take the ball and you bounce it in box number 2. And then before the dog gets there, you take the ball away. The dog comes up to box number 2. There's no activity there. The ball's gone. And then they start checking every box. And then all of a sudden they get to the box where the odor is. And then the light goes on. Like, oh yeah, I got to play tennis ball here where the smell was, so I'm going to stay here. And then they stay there. You reward them by giving them the ball, and you play tug of war right there again at the pod, and you just keep repeating this game and repeating this game.
Are you able to talk much about different successful finds that she had during her career?
Yeah, she had her biggest seizure was over at the Philadelphia airport. We were what we call running luggage. There were suitcases coming in from Puerto Rico, and we ran her by the suitcases, let her take a sniff of the suitcases, and while she was running this line of suitcases, she picked out 3 suitcases. We pulled all 3 suitcases out and looked at them, and they're all brand new, identical suitcases. So we figured we had something here. So we set them up onto the conveyor belt. And 2 men pick up the suitcases. They go to leave. We stop them. We interview them. They refuse to let us search the suitcases. But because of Kirby's indication and other factors during the interview, we decided that we would take the suitcases and the subjects into the office, get a search warrant for the suitcases, and take things from there. My car was parked right there at the curb, and I had a Ford Expedition, so the dog was all the way in the back. So I had an empty back seat. So they put the 2 subjects in the back of my car. And while I'm sitting there, one of the guys says to me, "Excuse me, am I here because of the officer dog?" Now he spoke Spanish. It was a little broken up. And I said, "The officer dog?" He goes, "Yeah, the dog in the back. Is that why I'm here?" I'm like, "Yeah, you could say that." And he goes, "Oh, well, that's a good dog." So I paused for a second. I looked at him. I said, "What are you telling me? My dog's right?" And he's like, "Oh." So he just gave it up that, by saying that there's drugs in that suitcase. Your dog was right. Your dog hit on it. And that's why we're here. Like, it was funny. I've been in situations where, and I work with the same guys over the years. And these guys had started, I was tied up on something else. A couple guys had asked me to bring Kirby to a search warrant. I got there at the tail end, and they're packing everything up. And I said, "Well, we're done. We got a little bit, not what we expected, but if you want to run her through the house, go ahead and run her through the house." So I take her upstairs, and most of the Philly row homes are the same. So I systematically always start upstairs in the master bedroom, run the bedrooms down on the first floor and into the basement. So I take her into the master bedroom. I don't even get the door shut. She rips the leash out of my hand, goes up under the bed, and pulls out a bag containing $90,000 cash. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and I open the door. I'm like, "You missed something." I hear the guys go downstairs. They're like, "Is she kidding with us?" So they come upstairs. They're like, "Unbelievable." I'm like, "This is why you can't beat a dog. No. You need a dog at these search warrants. If it's not mine, you need a dog that knows what it's doing." And they laughed about it, and And a couple weeks later, they had a job where they had stopped a pickup truck, and they were searching it, and they couldn't find what they were looking for. So I brought Kirby up, and Kirby started searching the car, and she went over to the glove box and started scratching on the glove box. Well, as she scratched the glove box, it opened, and she's sticking her nose in the back of the glove box, and she's going crazy. So we pull her out of the car, and we get a pry bar, and the actual door of the airbag we pop off. There are a couple stolen guns in there, and about, I think, 2 or 3 kilos of cocaine.
Wow.
So where this truck had come from, they get a search warrant for this place, and it's actually a big warehouse. And they get the search warrant, and of course I'm going to hang around because I really want the dog to run this warehouse when they get the search warrant. And I take her into the warehouse, and there's probably a dozen vehicles in there, and different things throughout the warehouse. So she goes in, and she's like, she's pretty much like, there's something here, there's something here, there's something here. And she's, running through the warehouse, just indicating left and right. So we mark all the places, and the guys are going to go back and search. And she had, the way the warehouse was set up, there was a bathroom, and it was almost like a small little shed inside the warehouse, and had its own roof about 8 feet high. And the warehouse ceiling had to be 20 feet high. So, as I'm talking, she goes into the bathroom, and she starts jumping up and doing backflips off the wall of the bathroom. So I go over and grab her, and I said, "Hey, you guys might want to check the ceiling of the bathroom." And so they took note of it, and I stayed while they were searching and helped out. So what happened was one of the guys gets on a ladder and goes up, and he's standing on it's plywood on top of this ceiling. So he's standing actually on basically the roof of this bathroom, and he's like, "Chris, I'm up here." He goes, "It's just plywood. Everything seems fine." I'm like, "All right, well, maybe she's smelling the odor from something else moving around in the warehouse." So when we got done, we're packing everything up, and I said, "Oh, what'd you guys get out of the bathroom?" "What are you talking about?" I said, "The bathroom. What'd you guys get?" Well, here, as the agent was getting down off the bathroom ceiling, roof there, he sat down, and the plywood was being held down by a pressure lock. So he sat down on the plywood, got onto the ladder, and didn't realize it. Well, the pressure lock released, and there's a hydraulic arm, and the roof, one of the pieces of plywood on the roof just started slowly going up. And there was I think a half kilo of crack and some money and like a kilo of cocaine up there. But it was comical, and it's something, like I said, we would have never found it if it wasn't for the dog.
Oh, nice. Did you ever have any sort of run-ins while there were still suspects around when she was doing any searching?
Not really. She never really came out of the car unless everybody was secure. Mm-hmm. And the scene was safe. She didn't do the patrol work end of things, so she wasn't put in that position. Okay.
Were you ever worried that someone would intentionally booby trap an area for a search dog?
I did have a few incidents where it wasn't necessarily a booby trap, but let's face it, when you're bringing a dog in, obviously the dog's looking for drugs, but I always walk a house first. I open every door of the house. I walk a house without the dog, and then I go and get the dog. I had one instance where she jumped on top of a bed where there was a bunch of stuff on top of the bed, and she put her paw had gone into a duffel bag, and she pulled it out and it was covered in cocaine. And I always try to have somebody there with me while I'm searching. So, I grabbed her right away to make sure she didn't put her nose to her paw or, lick her paw or whatever. And the other officer with me ran and got something to clean her up with. I had an incident once where she went into a closet, and the door had opened up into the closet. And on that back handle of the door, there was a bag hanging with small glassine bags of cocaine. And so she went into the closet around the back of the door, and actually grabbed the bag. It was like a plastic shopping bag, and pulled back. But when she pulled back, white powder was flying all over.
Yeah.
And it scared the daylights out of me. So I grab her right away so that she can't, lick or inhale anything, and yelled for help, and the guys ran in and helped me clean her up and make sure that she was okay. I never got to the point where I had to actually rush her into the vet because of any type of exposure.
Okay. So you mentioned the vet. Did she have to go to the vet for any other sort of health issues?
No, she was the healthiest dog I ever owned. She had one little skin tag on the inside of her eye that they wanted to remove. They said it could be cancer, could not be cancer. We're not sure. So the only time during her career that she really needed, other than her shots and checkups, was for this skin tag on her eye. And then the skin tag was removed and everything was fine. There were no further issues with it. And then just after she retired, she started limping. I took her to the vet, and then we found a tumor on her toe. I reached out to a guy that I found on the internet that lived down in New Mexico, and he was a Border Patrol agent, and he had a nonprofit that paid for it's stuff like this for a retired police dog. And I reached out to him. He agreed to pay the bill, and he did. And then after that, I met Jason Johnson from Project Canine Hero, and he adopted Kirby into his program, and he paid for the rest of Kirby's vet bills. But there really wasn't much. She was overall healthy, and lived to just after 15 years old.
Okay. And at what age did Kirby retire?
She was about 12 when she not 12, maybe around 11 or 12 when she retired.
Okay. Going back a little bit, did it take long to her to settle in eventually with the other dogs in your home?
It probably took about 6 months for everybody to understand the situation. The funniest was I had the other dogs away, and I wanted her to get to know the house. So I was watching TV, I was letting her run loose, and I look over, and there was nothing on my kitchen counter, but I don't know that she'd ever been at a house before because she was standing on the kitchen counter. I'm like, well, why are you doing that? And she's like, she's just standing there. Like, this is the place to stand at the moment. And it was funny. And then one time she was in the front living room of the house, and I went through the dining room to the sliding back door, opened it up, said, come on, you want to go outside? She walks through the living room, goes up, walks across the kitchen table, down the other side of the kitchen table, and out the back door. I'm like, I can't believe you did that. But here, I'm like guessing she had never been in a house before. So I just laughed. I mean, she didn't do any damage. It was pretty funny.
So, apart from the liking of going up and over tables and kitchen benches, what would you say that her other sort of like unique habits would be?
There wasn't anything other than her just kind of adapting to life in the house. That she never really had any crazy habits. She had she learned to have an off switch when we came into the house. That we were done working and we're going to chill out, and and then when it was time to work, we worked.
Do you recall one of the longer sort of like searches that you guys would have been on that didn't result in anything, and did that have any sort of frustration at the end? No,
I mean it's not frustrating. I mean, sometimes it's very difficult. Here's a frustrating case. It wasn't long term, but there was a minivan on a street, and a confidential informant for DEA said that there's probably about 60 kilograms of cocaine in this minivan. So they called me, and Kirby was very good at, I didn't have to put her in the search mode. If we were walking and she smelled drugs, she was so obedient to the odor of drugs, she would just automatically, the switch would go on, and she's like, hey, I smell something, and she would go to it. It happened several times at the Philadelphia airport. So I kind of nonchalantly walk her by this van like I'm out for a walk with her, and she shows no interest in it. So then when I get down the end of the block, I come back and I walk her down the other side of the cars so she can smell the other side of the car. she doesn't give me any interest. So we go back, we talk about it. We're like, well, the gig's kind of up. Why don't you just take the dog and do a thorough search of the vehicle? So I take her over and I run her around the car clockwise. I run her around counterclockwise. I have her, I made sure she checked the bottom undercarriage. I made sure it was a small minivan. I made sure she ran over the top of it. And she gave me nothing. So I turned around to the agents. I said, I don't know what you want me to tell you, but I'm getting nothing here. And they were frustrated. And it was also a compliment because a Philadelphia police officer is going to write a search warrant if Kirby had given an indication to this minivan. So the DEA agent calls this Philadelphia police officer, says, hey, Kirby didn't hit, get me another dog that'll hit on the car. So the officer goes, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. He said, if Kirby says no, it's no. So under different laws and everything, the vehicle wasn't properly registered, so they towed it. And there's something called an inventory search where you check a car that goes into storage because there could be things of value in it. Not necessarily drugs, but I mean, somebody says, hey, I had a $10,000 diamond ring in there. Mm-hmm. And, stuff like that you have to look for. So they do a cursory search of the vehicle, and under the seat is a duffel bag, and they open it up, and there's, I believe it was six packages consistent with the way kilograms of cocaine are packaged. So the agent's like, oh, he goes, I knew it was in here. So they open up they do what's called a field test to check to see what the drugs are in the packaging, and everything came up negative. No drugs were identified. So they look into it further, and they discover that more than likely it's probably pancake mix. Mm-hmm. And somebody was setting somebody up, in this situation, I guess, to see if they would rat on them. And so the next morning, an email was put out in the DEA saying that group that had seized that vehicle was going to do a pancake breakfast for the whole DEA office. It was pretty comical.
So I'm going to go back to something you mentioned and flip. Was there ever a time when you guys were out somewhere not on duty and she indicated?
There was a time. It was a small amount, but we stopped by a friend's restaurant for lunch, and I was actually sitting with a couple of other police officers, and my friend knew what we did for a living, obviously, and these two guys come in, and Kirby was around people so much she didn't really zero in on people when they walked into a room, and these two guys walk by her, and all of a sudden you see the head go up and the nose starts tingling, and all the guys sitting with me, we all look down at her, and she gets up and then she sits down. She's looking at these guys, and so I accidentally dropped a leash, and she goes over, and when the guy sat down, his pockets kind of opened up a little bit on his pants, and she went over and she sticks her nose right on the edge of the pocket of his pants, and so I jump up and grab her real quick because when she indicates she scratches, and I didn't want her scratching them, and the bartender said, that is a police dog, and the guy's like, yeah, he goes, that's a drug dog. And the guy got up and ran out of the bar. If there was anything in his pocket, it was very small, so we just kind of laughed about it.
How was Kirby when it came to maintenance and grooming and things like that?
She was really low maintenance. She had a really nice coat. She stayed in the house with me. She was in my car with me all the time. She never got that dirty or muddy. On occasion, I would give her a bath, but she was a great dog that way. She wasn't smelly. She was not high maintenance at all. Mm-hmm. Every once or twice a week, I'd run a brush over her and get the shedding out. But other than that, it was very easy with her.
Okay, so you mentioned bath. When you guys were out in some downtime, did she enjoy water?
She would come to Maine with me, and I have a friend that actually has a private island here, and she would love to run around on the rocks on the coast of the water, but she did not care to go in the water. Okay. She just, she'd go in maybe 6 inches a foot. That was it. She had no desire to swim.
Mm-hmm. So she did some hiking and stuff like that with you as well, or?
Yeah, on our off time, we went hiking. I had a camper and then an RV while I had her, so we spent a lot of time traveling in the RV. She loved it. I would stack stuff around the front passenger seat of the RV, and she was my co-pilot. She just she laid on the seat there and looked out the window.
Oh, nice. Do you think she would have had a favorite place that you visited?
I think her favorite place was probably my friend's island, because she just had the freedom to run and do what she wanted. It was, like I said, it's probably about 10 acres, and she would just love to rip around the island and, play on the rocks. And, it was great to see her, enjoy herself outside of work.
Yeah, sounds like a really nice spot. Were there any other animal species there on the island that she interacted with?
No other animals.
Guessing that would have been interesting with a high drive.
Yeah. She did have an encounter once with a groundhog. Well, actually, she had two encounters. She did have an encounter with a groundhog, and the groundhog lost. And then one day in my backyard, I don't know why, the skunk decided it was going to try to walk through my backyard, and I didn't see it, and I let her out. And she got into a little scuffle with the skunk, and I didn't see it directly when it first happened. Of course, I smelled it. And after the fight had broken up and she came back to the house, I took her out and washed her in. There's like a concoction people make up of Dawn dishwashing liquid, peroxide, and baking soda to help get the odor out. So I washed her up real good with that, and she seemed fine. It was a Friday morning. We were off for the weekend. By Sunday night, she wouldn't eat, and she was acting funny. She always ate. So I spoke to the supervisor, who said, if you feel you need to take her to the vet, take her to the vet. And we have 24-hour emergency vets in our area. So I figure I'll wait to see how she's doing in the morning. Checked on her in the middle of the night. She was in her crate. She sat up, and everything seemed fine, went back to bed. Well, the next morning, she was like a rag doll. I couldn't even get her to stand. Every time I got her up, all 4 feet under her, she collapsed. So I rushed her to the emergency vet and explained the situation with the skunk. And as I was petting her, I could feel almost like a scab on her back. And I said, I don't know what the scab is. It's I don't remember feeling this before. So the vet started shaving that area and shaving that area and shaving that area. I guess what happened was, when she grabbed the skunk, I guess she had not gotten the skunk by the back of the neck at first. Well, the skunk had chewed up her shoulder. And she must have been bit probably 10, 20 times. She was getting infected. And that's why she wasn't feeling well. So she went on antibiotics. We rehydrated her, and she was fine.
Do you think with the skunk attack and that sort of assault on her senses, any sort of ill effect on her searching ability in that sort of like first few days or anything after that?
Yeah, she seemed fine after that.
Question I asked everyone, and it's I got a feeling I'm not going to get. Well, I'll ask anyway, but it's to complete the sentence. I can't believe my dog ate.
Yeah, and I saw that. And the funny thing is, she's never had that issue.
Yeah,
she was not that type of dog to eat anything.
There's a lot of the more, say, the professional working dogs. I don't get an answer from that mostly, and that's a good thing. And
yeah,
been some other dogs that say, even pet dogs, know they've never picked anything up, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. I've had dogs that eat some crazy things, but not this one.
So did she start to interact a lot more over time with the other dogs that you did have in the household, or that just did take a long, long time?
She did. My when I got her, the other dogs were older, and so they had passed when she was young, and then I got a male golden retriever puppy, and she just absolutely fell in love with him. Those two, like off duty at the house, were inseparable. If one was in a room, the other one was in a room. They just I didn't like physically let them play together until the puppy was 6 months old, but They were together all the time. She absolutely loved being around him.
Oh, nice.
And then when I got the partner that I retired with, Karma, she's a Shepherd. I got her as a puppy. And people always say female German Shepherd against female German Shepherd, they're not going to get along. Well, I was surprised because what I did was I put their crates next to each other, and she watched the puppy grow up. And when the puppy, was a little older, probably about 6-7 months, I physically introduced them to each other, and the puppy jumped on her head once, and she took the puppy and pinned the puppy to the ground, and it was over. They were best friends after that.
Over the 10 years or so, how would you have, say, compared her with some of the other dogs that were doing similar sort of work in your area?
Everybody in our area, we work together when somebody's having an issue with a dog, and we had a really strong canine unit in our department, and she had the experience of going out and doing crazy jobs. That she had a crazy one at the airport one day, actually inside a plane, but she was she was maybe a step ahead of them a little bit because she did it so much compared to a lot of other dogs that maybe only got 1, maybe 2 jobs a week or a month or within a month. But she was constantly going. Okay. And I always tried my best to make myself available to whenever she was needed, whether it was the middle of the night or first thing in the morning. I always answered the phone, and I always tried to get there. And if I couldn't, I never had any reservations of sending another officer from my police department that had a dog, because I had trained the dogs. I knew what they were capable of, and I knew the handlers had the confidence to go out and do it.
So was there ever an instance where she failed to go into an area to do a search?
She was pretty much what I would call bomb-proof. She just, if you sent her somewhere, she went. She never balked, really. She just, she always went forward.
Excellent. Did you notice much of a difference in her personality when she stopped working professionally?
Not really. I think she was starting to get older, and she always worked and she always went forward for me. But I think, she was getting older and she was feeling it, and she had no complaints. I mean, she started staying home, and she seemed okay with it right away. She didn't get destructive. She was always loose in the house, and she just it never really fazed her.
Mm-hmm. When she was in her retirement at home, what was her sort of favourite things to do that she could then do more of?
I made sure she got out every night for a nice long walk, and she loved that. She loved seeing people in my neighborhood. But I think her all-time thing was was the camping. Going out in the camper and going camping. So I started getting that camper ready, and she got all hyped up and couldn't wait to get in it.
Nice. Did the spots when you went camping, were they sort of like popular spots, or they were more sort of like private areas?
I spent a lot of time in private areas at friends' properties in Maine. When I came up to Maine prior to moving here, I have friends that have like 100 acres, and I would park there. This way, the dogs had the opportunity to run and everything, which you can't really let happen in a campground.
So in the camper, when you did those trips, how many dogs came with you?
2 or 3.
2 or 3?
Yeah.
Excellent. Is there anything else that's coming to mind that you'd like to share about Kirby?
Well, back in 2012, my DEA supervisor had nominated her for an award with the American Kennel Club called the ACE Award, which stands for the Award for Canine Excellence, where they pick one police dog a year to win this award. And back in 2012, she was awarded that title as their ACE Award winner. And So we flew down to Florida for the show where, they taped the show and everything. And then in February 2013, it was on TV.
Wow, that's very prestigious. Go out on a limb here and say your proudest moment with her?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely was.
So did you have to do much press and that with her after that?
I did. The local news channels down in Philadelphia ran the story just prior to her being on TV, prior to the show. And then myself and the K9 unit, we all got together and had a little party and with some other friends and supporters and watched the show on TV together.
Really, really nice. And I know you did something a little bit different to request from another event that you guys attended.
The German Sheperd Dog Club of America had honored her at their 100-year anniversary, and they had her at the show and everything. And then after she passed, they had reached out to me and asked me. They said, write up something about Kirby. We want to put it in our in our quarterly magazine newsletter thing. So I, instead of just saying, yeah, Kirby did this and Kirby did that, I mean, she's responsible for over $105 million in seizures. I actually wrote an open letter to her of our life together. And I had forwarded it to the German Sheperd Dog Club of America, and they loved it. And then I made a copy of it. I sent a copy of it to Jason at Project K9 Hero, and he loved it. And then once Kirby had passed, Kirby had obviously passed when I wrote the letter. So he had a friend who's an artist. Jason took a canvas and had the letter printed on the back of this canvas with the American flag in the background, a faded American flag in the background. And then his friend did an acrylic painting over top of the painting, over top of the canvas, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Wow, that sounds it.
And like I said, I can send you a copy of the letter. It's pretty neat.
I would love to read that. Thank you. You mentioned now that you're doing your own training business. Would you like to let people know how they could get in contact with you?
I do have a website out there. The name of the business is Stone Coast Dog Training out of South Thomaston, Maine. And if you jump on Facebook or just Google it, it'll come up, and just reach out to me.
Oh, fantastic! And would Kirby have any part of inspiring that?
She did. All my dogs played a part into it. Played a part of it. I retired in December 2019, and I was up here. I was having a house built all through COVID, and then just talking to people in the area, everybody's like, "Oh, you got to start a dog business up here. You got to start a dog training business up here. We have nobody to go to deal with, behavioral issues and obedience and everything." So I started looking into it more and more, and did some research through COVID, and went and met with a really great trainer by the name of Robin McFarland out of Dubuque, Iowa, and she's a guru when it comes to the e-collar. So I reached out to her. I didn't know her. She agreed to let me come out. So in April, I went out and learn what it was like to run a pet dog business, and she made me well versed on using the e-collar, the remote collars, and I came back, announced the business in May, and it took off like wildfire.
Oh, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Thank you very much again. I've very much enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Thank you to our new listeners in Barnet in the UK and Athens, not in Greece yet, but in the US. as per usual, if you could share this episode with a friend, let people know how awesome dogs are, I would really appreciate it. Also, if you would like, feel free to leave a review on whatever platform you are listening on. Until next time, stay safe and remember, your dog is family.